I don't know how much longer I'll be here, but one thing I know, this story needs to be told. 89 years have passed, and my heart still beats for them, my comrades in arms. I saved many, but I also lost so many, and there's one loss that never heals. Do you know what it is? The longing for those who were left behind. I don't know how long I've been here. 89 years have passed, but the pain seems to always be with me, as if time couldn't erase the ghosts I carry. Sitting here in my rocking chair, everything feels so distant yet so real. Every image on the wall, every medal, every photo, every scar on my soul. They remind me of what I've been through, what I've lived, and more importantly, what I've lost. Maybe time has given me the opportunity to look back, but nothing prepared me for this moment. War, as everyone knows, is cruel. And the cruelty isn't just in the battlefields, in the bombs falling, or in the cries of pain. It also hides in the scars we don't see, in the souls that can never be repaired. When I came back home after the war, everyone saw me as a hero. There was pride in calling me a veteran, but they didn't know what had really happened, what I really lived through. Every battle fought out there was still present in here, and it was harder than any enemy I had ever faced. I saved lives, but I also lost many. And many times, the pain of losing a friend was harder to bear than any explosion or bullet I had ever faced. I didn't know how to deal with it. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the thoughts. War doesn't end when you come home. What stays with you are the memories, the ghosts you can never leave behind. I tried to move forward, tried to find peace, but none of that was easy. I spent years trying to hide what I felt, trying to keep up appearances. Things didn't change, but I knew that something inside me was still missing. I could never get rid of the guilt. I always thought I could have done more to save others. If I had been faster, more alert, maybe. But we'll never know, right? The nights were the worst. When silence fell, I could hear the screams of those who had gone. What would they ask of me if they were here? I wondered if they would be proud of me. Life didn't seem to make sense anymore. I was trapped in a cycle of memories and regrets, trying to find something that would make me move forward. Then one night, while I was looking at a picture of me from the war, something deep in my mind stirred. I saw the plane, the same model, the same type of aircraft I had flown so many times. The sound of the engine, the roar of the wind, and the weight of the sky hit me like a wave of nostalgia. I thought, suddenly, maybe it was time to return. Not to the war, but to the sky. I was old, but there was still something inside me that didn't want to give up. I wanted the last flight. The request came out of my mouth almost without thinking. I went to the person responsible for the plane's restoration. It was a historic aircraft, and they were restoring it for an event. I hesitated, but then I said, "I want to fly again." He looked at me surprised. "You're 89 years old. It's not safe." I knew that, but I didn't care. "I need this," I said. He didn't understand, of course. No one who hasn't been there understands. But something inside me told me this would be the last step to finding peace. I needed this final mission, and deep down, I knew that the only way to move forward was to do this. "Let me fly one more time, just one more time." He hesitated, but in the end, the request was granted. I was cleared to fly. Even with my age, even with the risks, all I knew was that I needed to do this for myself, for all the friends I lost, for all those who could never return. I needed to give the last flight. The training was harder than I imagined. The body of an 89-year-old veteran doesn't respond the same way as a young soldier's body. My joints ached, my hands trembled, and my mind desperately tried to remember what I had once known. What bothered me the most was that, while I knew my mind was sharp, my body wasn't responding. Every movement reminded me that time was no longer my friend, and every time I sat in the cockpit, the world felt different. The sensation of being back in the place where it all began, The pressure of the controls, the sound of the engine, the smell of fuel, all of it took me back to those days of war. But it wasn't the same anymore. I wasn't going on a combat mission. I was going after something different, something deeper, more personal, and with every training session, fear intensified. I clearly remember the first time I tried to take off after so long. The plane was on the runway, the engine roaring, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It wasn't the plane, it wasn't the runway, it was me. I was afraid, not of the flight itself, but of what it represented. I was afraid of reliving everything I went through, of reliving the lost friends, of remembering the battles we fought and those who never came back. The fear wasn't of the sky, it was of the memories the sky might bring back. The young instructor, who was with me, noticed that something was bothering me. "Are you afraid?" he asked at one point. I hesitated. I wasn't one to talk about my fears. I was never one to show weakness, especially to younger people. But at that moment, the words came out uncontrollably. "I'm afraid of not being in control," I said. "I'm afraid of failing." He smiled with understanding. "Every pilot is afraid, but it's that fear that makes us fly more carefully. You've flown in much harder situations. Remember that." I took a deep breath. The instructor was right. I wasn't a rookie. I had faced much worse things most people couldn't even imagine. The war wasn't just a battle against the enemy. It was a constant battle against the fear of losing more, of failing, of not being able to protect others. But at that moment, I knew I was facing a new battle, and I couldn't let fear paralyze me. I focused. I started remembering the previous flights, the missions, the sound of the wind cutting through the sky, the sunlight reflecting on the wings of the plane. I wasn't alone anymore. I was with myself, with the memories of those who had already passed, with the stories of my friends. They were all there, with me, reminding me of what I was capable of. The day of the flight was approaching. Every training session made me stronger, more focused. I knew the flight would be a challenge, but at the same time, I knew that this challenge was the only way to find the peace I had been looking for all my life. I didn't know what awaited me in the air, but I knew that somehow I had to do this. It was my chance to redeem myself. Over time, the fear began to subside. With every takeoff, confidence returned. I started feeling more comfortable. My body, though weaker, began to respond better. The memories of the war started to calm down. Not that they disappeared, but the sense of loss was no longer as overwhelming. I was beginning to accept that loss was a part of life, and that I had to find a way to move forward. The instructor helped me gain confidence, but I knew the biggest challenge would be the flight. It wasn't the training that worried me, it was the final mission. The last flight, I was ready. The fear was still there, but now I knew that fear was just a part of the process. And as always, fear would never stop me from doing what had to be done. The day arrived, the moment I had been waiting for so long. The day of my last flight. I knew it would be the most significant moment of my life, but I didn't know if I was ready. The fear was still there, but there was something inside me telling me that I had to face this. I couldn't run anymore. My whole life I lived with the weight of war and loss. Now I needed to find a way to release that weight and move forward. I got into the cockpit, and the familiar smell of fuel and metal surrounded me. The sound of the engine starting, the shine of the dashboard before me, everything felt like before, but now what was at stake was different. I wasn't just flying the plane, I was flying my memories, my losses, my pain. Every movement, every adjustment to the controls was an attempt to face what consumed me inside. The plane started to accelerate down the runway. I could feel the weight of the moment, the weight of the life I was leaving behind, the weight of the memories I was carrying. But when the wheels finally left the ground, the sensation was indescribable. I felt like I was releasing something inside me. The sky, clear and open, embraced me, and for a moment the pain and guilt dissipated. I was in the air, and in the air I felt free. The wind cut through my face, and the plane moved smoothly. I looked down at the land and saw the world I had defended so many times, and for the first time in years, I felt that war was no longer in control. I was no longer trapped by it. My fallen friends, those who couldn't return, were with me. I could feel them there, with me, giving me strength. I looked at the horizon and for a moment, I felt at peace. I was flying, but not just physically. I was leaving behind the weight of guilt, the pain. I was leaving behind all the memories that haunted me, and for the first time, I realized that true freedom wasn't in the flight, but in accepting the loss and moving forward. When the plane finally touched the ground again, I knew it was the last time. The last flight, not just in a plane, but the last flight of a lifetime of struggle, pain, and overcoming. I had faced my ghosts, and I had left them in the sky. I had completed the final mission. Now I could rest. Have you ever faced your own fears and overcome something that seemed impossible? What would you do to find peace after so much suffering? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Life is made of moments like this, and peace is found when we least expect it. Don't miss the chance to make a difference.